From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello, I'm Alison Mitchell and welcome to Stumped. I'm joined by the ABC's Jim Maxwell in Sydney and Cherry Sharma is in Delhi for Akashvani. Now, the Women's World Cup has reached the business end of the tournament. One of the great stalwarts and pioneers of the game has bowed out without making the final, sadly. New Zealand didn't qualify for the semis, meaning their captain, Sophie Devine, hasn't quite had the fairy tale finish to her 19-year career that she might have liked, at least not in the ODI format. After 159 matches, Devine has retired from one-day internationals as one of only 3 players in the world to have scored more than 4,000 runs and taken more than 100 ODI wickets. She will continue to play T20 and franchise cricket, and I'm delighted to say that she is with us now on Stumped. Sophie, it's great to have you on. Congratulations on your ODI career. And you've been in the game as long as I have been covering it. How have the emotions been over the last few days?
Yeah, it's certainly been a bit of a whirlwind. Obviously, probably ended, unfortunately, a little bit sooner than I would have hoped. But I guess for me, it has been, such an incredible journey, and to have, I guess, the opportunity, which doesn't happen often, I guess, to be able to decide when you walk away from the game. It's something that I'm really grateful for. And I think I can walk away, hopefully, with my head held high and really proud of, I guess, the career I've had in the 50 over format, but also, as you say, having been involved for so long, to see the changes in the women's game has been unbelievable. So I certainly leave this format knowing that it's in incredible hands and that it's going to continue to grow around the world.
The change in the women's game, certainly. What about the change in your own game? How would you say your own career has evolved over those years?
Look, I think it's probably done a full 360. I know starting off back in, 2006, I was most definitely just a bowler that sometimes knew how to hold a bat, but mostly not. But to see that my game has literally developed through everything and to, I guess, finish being maybe more so of a batting all-rounder. I certainly didn't picture that when I first started my international career, but it's been incredible. And through all the ups and downs and my own personal performances and opportunities and World Cups, pinnacle events, it is pretty crazy to think, starting way back, versus Australia all those years ago to now, where my game's at, but also the game as a whole. It's almost completely unrecognisable from those first early days.
I know you said you haven't quite finished on maybe the high that you would have liked in this tournament, but at this World Cup, you were still the leading run scorer for New Zealand, 289, 4 wickets as well, but you're right up there in the leaderboard for the overall tournament during their group stage as well. Was there any point when you thought, I'm retiring and I shouldn't be?
No, again, I think that's a really nice way to leave the game, is to be, still performing and still contributing. And I think that's always been, I guess, part of my conversations and thinking around retiring, is that I guess I wanted to walk away when I was ready and not be pushed or not, be helping the team win games of cricket, and to still be able to do that, right up until my final game. I think that's something that, I'm pretty proud of, and to still know that I can, I guess, hack it at this level. It's pretty special to be able to walk away. I mean, I know Ben Sawyer, the coach, sort of asked me afterwards if I'm sure about retiring, but no, I'm certainly really content with the decision.
Sophie, well done on your magnificent career, but I suppose you have to reflect on a somewhat damp tournament for New Zealand. Is that part, if not the main reason, why you didn't go further?
In all honesty, we didn't play good enough cricket. Yes, we can say that the rain hampered our chances, and who knows what would have happened if we were able to get past, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. And I guess our tournament would have gone a little bit deeper in terms of that game against England to finish up. But to be honest, we didn't win enough games of cricket. We had opportunities. We knew exactly where we stood. We knew how important early games were. Obviously, the first match against Australia was always going to be a big one for us, and South Africa as well. And certainly targeting those 2 games, if we could have snared some points from those games, would have set us up nicely. But look, the rain, I know I've spoken a bit about it, and I guess my frustration, yes, at our own, I guess, team's perspective on it, but just the competition as a whole. I just think there needs to be some serious questions asked around the scheduling of it, the timing of the games, with knowing what Sri Lanka's weather patterns are at this time of year. I mean, I've certainly become an expert in reading weather maps and rain radars and all that over the last couple of weeks, but I just think moving forward, it's so important World Cups come around only every 4 years, that you don't want so much of it to be skewed by wet weather. And I know you can't control it, but I certainly think with a bit more foresight that whether it was starting the games at 10 or 11 a.m. I know our last game against England was played at 11 a.m. So, yeah, I just certainly hope that there's some changes made moving forward, that cricket is played.
Was there much discussion with ICC officials, representatives, about the staging of the matches in Sri Lanka?
Not with me personally. And to be honest, I haven't heard anything either before or since around that. To be honest, the whole tournament obviously, was probably a little bit slow in terms of confirming venues, dates, obviously with, I guess, the situation that India and Pakistan in terms of having to move some of those games out. I know a question was asked around what was the possibility of playing those games in the UAE rather than Sri Lanka. But again, not from any official sources, but with the Men's Asia Cup being played there just before the Women's World Cup, whether the wickets and the pitches would have been able to handle it. But again, I mean, I would love to sit down with any representation from the ICC around future planning and just making sure that everything is being done to ensure as much cricket is being played at a pinnacle event that teams have worked so hard for the last couple of years to reach that point, to then be sitting in your changing room watching the rainfall. It can be frustrating, but yeah, like I go back to, we weren't good enough. We didn't win enough games of cricket. So, I think I'd still be speaking up about the weather and scheduling and things like that, even if we had have made it through. But I think, at the end of the day, we weren't good enough as a team, unfortunately.
You were quite emotional at the start of the tournament through the national anthem. We could see all of that. So why is it that do you think that the team wasn't able to get the start they wanted? And how has this affected you and your feelings about the game, particularly as it was your last tournament?
Yeah, I think the great thing for me in terms of being able to announce my retirement early and process a lot of the emotions is that when it came to this tournament, absolutely, I want to win. You talk to anyone, and I love winning, and I'm one of the most competitive people going around, and that's always really important. But it was how we played the game, and that's probably what's probably a little bit harder for me to swallow is that, especially that last game, that's not what I know that this New Zealand team's capable of. But at the end of it, it's keeping that perspective and that, yes, it is just a game, and I've been so fortunate to have played it for so long, but we weren't able to maintain pressure for long enough periods of time. I know with the bat, we had a number of poor starts, which is always difficult. We spoke at length before the tournament started that the power plays were going to be incredibly important. We weren't 100% sure what the wickets were going to play like. I guess from my experience in playing in India is they're either absolute roads and 300s par, or it's going to be low, slow turning scores where 200, 180 might be more than enough. But we both, I guess, felt that both those situations, it was really important the power play sort of sets you up. And I think with the bat, we certainly struggled with that. And then likewise, our inability to take wickets, I think, in the power play too. The game against India, their opening partnership, I think it was, 200 odd. It's always going to be difficult to build pressure into control teams, especially on good wickets. You can sort of buy that a little bit, that, pass scores, but regularly taking wickets, it doesn't matter what format or who you're playing or where, regular wickets always is a great way to, I guess, slow momentum and things like that from the batting side. So it's hard because I'm not sure what else we could have done in our preparation leading into the World Cup. We had, obviously it would have been nice to maybe play a few more games, but it was at the end of the FTP cycle. There are a number of teams that didn't play too much cricket leading into that World Cup. But for me, the training that we'd done back in New Zealand, the camps that we had a number of players travel to Chennai for 10 days not long before the World Cup. We had pre-World Cup camp in Dubai for about 10 days as well. So I'm not too sure what else we could have done leading into that to be any more prepared. I guess it's just when you get to the main stage, it's being able to front up and perform and execute all those skills and everything that you've worked on for the months and years leading into it.
Sophie, I've got to congratulate you on an absolutely glittering career, especially the one day, as of course, so much more cricket still to come from you. But, and also admiration for your being so gracious about the fact that, well, you may have won against the other two subcontinental teams. I think you were firm favourites, so the weather did rob you there. But if I can take you back to that game versus India, you mentioned, of course, the double century stand to begin with. It was a virtual knockout match for India. They were in so much trouble. Can you just shed some more light on that match? Because they did seem to suddenly find their form, or was that a particularly poor match for you? Your team?
We certainly knew going into that game the importance of it and the knockout mentality around it. We knew that we needed to play well to beat India, and especially at that ground. I guess the history suggests that it is a very high scoring ground and difficult to defend, hence why we thought we would bowl first and try and keep them to a total that we felt we could chase down. Obviously there was, unsurprisingly, a bit of weather around as well, which maybe it's more us as Kiwis seem to let the weather follow us, but it was. And I know I spoke quite considerably about the pressure facing India of playing a World Cup at home, and having been through that, having played the World Cup in New Zealand a couple of years ago, doesn't matter what you say or who says what, there's always going to be pressure and expectation of wanting to perform at home, and I guess it's how you deal with that. So the way that they handled that and the way that they came out, credit to them, they were outstanding. And I guess reflecting back on us, though, it was that inability to be able to break the wickets. We've seen that we can put pressure on their middle order, and be able to squeeze. But when you don't do that, when you've got Richa Ghosh and that coming through the middle, and we know what she can do towards the back end. I know she didn't do too much in that game, but I think for us, we still felt we were a real chance at the halfway point of that game, knowing that the wicket was so true, outfield was quick. But to be able to chase down a score like that, we know that we had to be, not just on par, but ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis system. And unfortunately, we just were never able to maintain that, despite, Brooke Halliday and Izzy Gaze giving a great shot, through the middle back end. But unfortunately, again, it just wasn't our day. And look, it's going to be a really interesting, tournament finishing up and how that plays out.
Well, we can all sense the heartbreak, Sophie. But you are going to continue playing cricket. Was the one-day format something you felt ideally suited for you? Was it special for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, having not had the opportunity to play Test cricket, one-day cricket is the longest format that I get to play, and probably the truest sense for me of testing my skills and being able to play over a longer period of time. I think it's such a great format for teaching strategy and tactics, which I, having been captain the last couple of years, it was something that I really enjoyed, and the skills and the planning and what goes into it is something that, certainly it's still there in T20 cricket, but the ability to build pressure both with the bat and the ball is something that I think is really unique to 50-over cricket. So I certainly still feel like, being able to walk away from the 50-over format, as you say, hopefully got a bit more cricket left in me now, but I've got to admit, I'm looking forward to not having to bowl 10 overs in a game anytime soon.
Well, you touched upon your start back in 2006, so it's been 19 years and 4 days, which is fantastic. The second longest for the White Ferns behind Susie Bates. What do you think about the future of the ODI format with T20 and other formats kind of taking over for New Zealand and, of course, for women's cricket? Is it still going to be the format?
I certainly hope it does play a major role in the women's game and even in the men's stuff too, to be fair. But I guess the positive that I see in the women's space is that hopefully we can get ahead of the curve in terms of we've seen the men's schedule and how chaotic it is with all the franchise leagues, the three formats, international cricket, bilateral cricket. Hopefully with the women's game, we've got that time to be able to, structure that in a better way, that the relevance and importance of international cricket, bilateral cricket and World Cups remains the number one priority, because I think that is so crucial to keeping alive the importance of the game. I've loved seeing more countries jump on board Test cricket. I've obviously I think West Indies are going to be playing a Test next year. Obviously Australia, England, India, South Africa, all jumping on that. I think it's really exciting. How that looks in terms of the scheduling, I really do hope that all boards from around the world and the ICC and New Zealand cricket can figure out a way to be able to fit that all in and to provide opportunities, windows of opportunity for each of those formats, franchise leagues to exist together, because we've got that at the moment with, our schedule not being as hectic as the men's stuff. And from a New Zealand perspective, it's hugely important. I think we'll always be asking for more cricket. I think that's the really important thing about us Kiwis, is that we just want to be playing more cricket. Obviously being stuck down the bottom of the world to get anywhere is usually a bit of a trek, but it is so important for the development of our team, of our players coming through, of the female game, is there's only so much training you can do. And the most learning you can get, I believe, is coming from playing games. And that's not just at the international level, it's A programs, second 11, it's camps, it's opportunities to play overseas, whether that's, heading to England and playing county cricket. I think that's going to be a real work on for New Zealand cricket, is how we can make sure that that continues for the New Zealand, contingent, to make sure that they're keeping up with the likes of Australia, India, England, who are real front runners in that space.
So if you've retired from one format, you've got such a great overview on the game, great depth of knowledge because you've been in it for so long. Are you interested in administration at all, being in a position in future where you can affect some of the changes and aspirations you talk about?
I certainly would love to be involved in cricket in some capacity. What that looks like, I'm not too sure, whether that's the administration side, whether that's coaching, hands-on, I'm not too sure. But as you say, I feel like I've probably got a pretty good take on the women's environment and the women's game, that I do. I want to see it succeed, and what that looks like. I think it's really important that conversations are being had, and if I can have them, then absolutely. I think that's sort of what I've got to figure out over the next sort of couple of years is what does that look like, and how can I help contribute to keeping the women's game as strong as it is, but to help keep it growing as well, because I think the growth that we've seen over the last 5-10 years has been great, but I also know that there's still so much more that this game can, take to the world.
You've got a T20 World Cup to defend first next summer in England. I'm presuming you hope to be there for that.
To be perfectly honest, I haven't made any decisions around that. I think that was a really conscious decision with the timing of our schedule and stuff. Now we don't have any international cricket till early next year, so I'm able to just sit back and reflect and I guess take stock of how the body's feeling and probably more importantly the mind, in terms of, am I prepared to go around again? Winning the World Cup last year was huge and so exciting. So I think it's really important that that World Cup next year is definitely a massive carrot, but it's really important that I'm in the right space both mentally and physically to go through that again, because I know what it takes to be able to front up and to continue to contribute and perform at that level.
Sophie, it's been an absolute pleasure following your career over all these years. Congratulations and good luck with what does come next.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stump. So my thanks to Jim Maxwell, to Chari Sharma, and to all of you for listening. And we'll speak to you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.